Right. We're live, Mark Froud.
We're live, everybody.
We're live. I think it's just us.
Back live with a vengeance.
Well, there's no vengeance.
Talking to ourselves, is it?
I'm on medication, and Mark's back from Turkey. So we're not going to be doing a quiz tonight because I ain't been very well. They've cut a big hole out of me back. I think we're the only ones watching at the moment. I think, actually, genuinely think we're talking to ourselves. Won't be the first time. We're waiting for Mari to come in. We tried to have a dry run and it didn't work.
But that's why we have dry runs. It will all work perfectly.
Well, she came in and we could see her, but we just couldn't hear her. So today I've got a lot of. Hold on, here's Mari. Let's see if we can get her back up. Add to stage. Mari? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I still can't hear her. That's rubbish. Oh, I'm such a twat. Oh, she's gone.
Oh.
Do it again. Mari, come back in. Come back in. So they've dug a big hole out of my back. I'm going to tell Mari to come back in. I had this horrible thing in my back and I've had it for like 20 years and they were trying to pussyfoot around it and then they just got me under general anaesthetic and they've carved a big hole out of me. And I'm going to have to go down and have it seen to every day for about a month. So I'm on a lot of strong medication and strange clothing. But this isn't strange. Mari got me this for a present. I'm going to say try again to Mari. I think I've got it this time. So, Mark, in my bag behind you, there are some ear plugs, ear microphone thing. But then you won't be able to hear, so this isn't going to... No, it should be okay. Mari's going to try and come in one more time, I think. So today, no quiz, but we do have a special guest in half an hour. But you won't be able to hear if I do this. You know what I mean? Unless you get the splitter, but who can be bothered with that? Don't worry.
Do you know where it is?
No. Sit down, don't worry about it.
All right.
Okay. So we're going to have a little chat with somebody who's going to come in half an hour. But before that, I wanted to have a look at one of my favourite things. And that's him. Oh, where is he? Him. That's one of my favourite things, that is. So I have got... I'm going to present... I want to show you some pictures that's in this book, because I love the Green Man. And we're just filling in time until Nick comes and gives us a presentation.
Yep.
So I'm going to present some pictures because I did my favourite thing the other week, which was the Evil Eye. And my second favourite thing is the Green Man. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you some pictures that are in here because I find it fascinating. So there we go. Share screen. Let's see if that's worked. There it is. So that's that book. And let's see if we can get Mari in one more time. So this is called The Green Man, and it is by Jeremy Hart. So we just have a little look at my book while I'm just waiting for Nick to come in, because Nick's going to give us the more professional presentation. I basically just took some pictures of this because I love The Green Man. It's absolutely fascinating. So I do paint pictures. I'll show you some of my pictures of The Green Man that I paint. There's one behind me, and I've given most of these away now. I don't have many of these left, but I love the image of the Green Man. I find it fascinating. So that's some of my stuff. But let's have a little look at this book, because it's quite a short little book, but it's got some really cool bits and pieces in. So the front cover is the Green Man in Norwich Cathedral. So, should I get this over here? In Norfolk, It's in the style called the foliate head, in which the shape of the face changes imperceptibly into leaves. Oh, there's Mari. Let's see if we can get her in again. Right, one more time, Mari. I'm going to try again. Here she is. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yay!
Yippee!
Can everybody hear Mari? Can you hear Mari?
Can I hear
Well, I can,
myself?
but through that computer.
Mari, I'm looking at the Green Man. I've got my book.
Oh, that looks nice.
It's brilliant.
It's-
Yeah,
It's not
it's absolutely
quite as
brilliant.
lovely as your paintings, mind, but yeah.
I've just shown them. I've just put them on. But I was just saying, there's no real definitive kind of where this comes from. So this one on the front is in Norwich Cathedral, and it was made by a 13th century master mason who kept a notebook of his designs, and he calls this the Tête de. How do I say that?
Diffuse?
It's French.
It's not right.
I haven't got a clue.
That's not right. That's not how you pronounce it.
And this one is entirely of leaves, but they weren't. I'm just going to go through some of the pictures, Mari. Maybe
Is it tête de feu?
Tête de feu. I can't even say
Or
it.
fleur?
No, it's F. There's no L before the after the E.
Tête de feu, like head on fire.
Where is it? I've lost it. Tête de Feuilles.
Oh, tête de feu, which is
Tête de feu.
de feu. It's like head of leaves.
Ah, that makes sense. Good job we got a culture person.
You
Yeah,
know,
I thought that was you,
You know,
Mark.
like
No.
in millefeuille, like the.
Oh
you know,
yeah.
1,000 leaves, yeah, like that.
So look
Yeah.
at some of these; they're amazing. So that one, that's a double header.
I like that one.
That's in Exeter Cathedral,
Mm.
in Devon. So sometimes the tendrils come out of other places, often the nose, but sometimes the eyes and the ears. But that's quite a good one. But this next one's absolutely terrifying. Look at this next one.
It's interesting that they own cathedrals and stuff.
Roslin Chapel, that one.
Right.
So apparently there's over 100 in the Roslin Chapel.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're not really sure where it's come from, but the Romans brought it over, but it was already here, kind of, but in the cathedrals.
Remember Tina did a we sang about an Etruscan god. They remind me a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Mm.
What's the name of the god, Mari?
I
You
think
remember?
Voltumnus or something like that.
Hi, DJ.
Hi, DJ.
So apparently they didn't appear in England until the 12th century, but they have a long history elsewhere. During the 1st century, decorative artists in Imperial Rome developed a playful tradition in which little people were seen hiding among leaves, turning into leaves, or actually being formed from them. It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
DJ, do you want to join the chat? We've got Nick in half an hour. I can send you a link if you want. It's a free for all, isn't it, Mari?
Something like that. So it's
Free
definitely free for all. Free for all on the Green Man.
Yeah.
He's,
But yeah.
No, I reckon the Romans ripped off the Etruscans because I had a look into it, and there's a lot of he's a fertility god, and because there was so much that the Romans appropriated from the cultures in within their vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Let's have a look.
Well, I'm sure like a lot of these things, it's a long line. Probably it's following on from from somewhere else as well. It's all the things that I've been
100%.
reading and looking at. It's
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty crappy as well. DJ, I'm not going to lie. That's why I'm just going to hand it over to. Oh, so yeah, Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, war, and crafts, equivalent to the Greek Athena and Roman Minerva. Let's see if we've got any images of that. Oh, look at that. Shall I share that one?
That's good, isn't it? That does look similar to some Green Man type situations.
Let me share this picture. So if I stop sharing that picture and then share this picture, this is one of the Etruscan gods you were talking about, Mari. Let me just get this one up. That's not it. Well, to be fair, I knew it wasn't going to go well today. I'm too doped up.
You seem very sharp.
Nah. I'm in so much pain you wouldn't even believe. Oh my God. And this is going to go on for months. I'm not in the mood for it, Mari. I am not in the mood for it. Right, share screen, window, that one. Look at that.
Love it.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of the images after I typed in Etruscan gods. So I don't know what. Let's have a look. Click into it.
So your book's saying it came to Britain from the Romans, or is there was already something similar in the British Isles already?
Well, yeah, but so this one is so the Etruscan gods. So the essential ingredient in Etruscan religion was a belief that human life was but one small meaningful element in a universe controlled by gods who manifested their nature and their will in every facet of the natural world, as well as in objects created by humans. So that looks very much like that other one that we were just looking at, doesn't it? Look at that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, because I would associate it now more with something that was outside of the Romans, and has become something that's become part
universal
of folk art.
Well, he's very European, I think. Oh, crikey. Is it frozen?
Says the foliate heads of this kind were produced as ornaments on temple friezes and capitals throughout the Roman Empire, from Turkey to the Rhine. Both foliate and sprouting heads also appear in Indian art from the 8th century, long before they became common in Europe. It's quite demanded to carve a realistic face formed out of leaves, and the sculptors in the later years of the Western Roman Empire, when they were producing much cruder work, hit on the idea of making the leaves come out like tendrils from the otherwise human face. But look at some of these. Go to the next one. We've done that one. So that's in Canterbury Cathedral in Kent. Cap masks sprouting beaded interlace were carved by the French masons who arrived with the stone they worked from Caen in the 11th century. And then look at this one. Look at that one.
Yeah, it's fabulous, isn't it? I'm not wanting to belittle it at all, but I'm not belittling it, but that sort of facial cartoony thing, that's something that gone through to the Muppets and all that sort of thing. It shows again the lineage. That sort of comedic, sort of crumpled, sort of parody of a human face.
That's similar to that, what's the name, the base of that column that you showed us, Mark, when you were in Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Was, turned the other way.
Yeah. That was the Medusa heads at the Basilica Sistine in Istanbul. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think with those, they were saying that they'd appropriated things from different civilizations previously, and it was sort of like almost like an insult way of subverting it by turning it upside down, and they often did. Obviously,
that reminds me of an Inca head. That one.
Yeah, no, there is that there as well. Yeah.
I think it might have been of necessity, because perhaps they were in a rush.
Yeah.
I mean, to put something up.
Yeah, just used whatever was available, really, whatever building materials they could find lying about.
There was a lot of that going on, I think, because imagine having to haul another piece of rock the same size. I mean, that's just my thought. And then carve it in situ, be hard.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think a lot of it was just taking advantage of what was available, really, and
Yeah.
building on it. Wow, that's amazing. That's a really striking, lifelike
Yeah,
face, isn't it?
that one is.
Where's that from?
That one is, I'm not sure it says on here actually. Oh, Sutton Bench in Wiltshire. One of the there's loads of them around Wiltshire.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll just have to search him out.
Yeah, there's loads of them. Old churches can seem very stark and plain today, but in the Middle Ages they would have been bright with green and gold, the colours of growth. Medieval people loved bright colours, which were so difficult for them to make artificially and yet so abundant in nature. The mystic Hildegard of Bingen spoke of
Viriditas.
The greening of the soul. The green man would have conjured up thoughts like this. He himself was always human colour, not tinted, although there were other outlandish figures in popular tradition who were this colour. In the 12th century, 2 green children were found at Woolpit in Suffolk. They said they came from a fairy underworld and stayed green by living on beans.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because on about the first day of the tour of Turkey when I was on, and I was talking to this American couple, Carlson Edner, about what I'd done my studies on and my book on the lost child, and Carlson mentioned those green children.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I had heard of it vaguely before, but I couldn't immediately remember it, and then he sort of put it in the group WhatsApp sort of thing. So yeah, it's again, things go around full circle, but yeah, that sort of stuck in his mind that he'd heard about that.
Never heard of it.
Wasn't it the claim to a thing where there was something to do with pigmentation of the skin, to do with certain?
Oh, I've heard of the blue people.
Right. Yeah.
But that was quite a modern day thing, I think.
Right.
And wasn't that something to do with inbreeding?
Oh yeah.
I might have made that completely.
No, I think you were right.
Yeah.
I think you're all right.
I think the Scots like to use it, or was it the Pictish people that like to?
Yeah, they used to put it. Yeah.
For warfare.
There must have been a reason for that.
Make them look scary.
But but why the blue? And why did that make them look scary? What were they trying to conjure up that made people scared of blue on their face? Do you know what I mean? Because why is that scary?
To the Maori when they used to do their war dances before going into battle. That's what that scene from the Mel Gibson Braveheart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Reminds me of a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So this was produced between 1280 and 1300 when local carvers flirted with the idea of absolute truth to nature. So between the arches of the building, we find hemp, nettle, ivy, bryony, hop, maple, buttercup and rose. The green men are a little lumpy by contrast, all the craftsman's attention having been lavished on the leaves around them.
Well, I'm a bit lumpy.
You're a lumpy green man, Mark Froud.
Well, I got the foliage.
You're a bit lumpy.
Yeah.
I've done a quick search and I've turned up Volturnus, and he said he was the god of the Tiber, but originally an Etruscan god. He spread to Rome. There you go.
Thank you. Right. So yeah, that obviously would have.
Yeah.
The Romans obviously would have picked up on that. Yeah. But then maybe somewhere else, the Etruscans got it from somewhere else again. But I guess that connection of man and nature is quite a eternal theme, isn't it? Really.
So not all green men are friendly. Or green, by the looks of it. Some scowl ferociously, others smile, but with such cold eyes that you suspect they are demons. It is true that green men do not normally have horns, but in the Middle Ages, these were not always shown as devils either. At Cartmel Priory, Lancashire, the devil is definitely shown as a green man. He has a crown, since he is the prince of this world, 3 joined up heads for the satanic trinity, and leaves growing from 2 of them. Blimey. So a rough bearded face glares down from the vault in Rochester Cathedral in Kent. In medieval romances, knights who go riding through the forest are often confronted by savage fellows like this, huge, ill-mannered peasants who threaten to fight with them. Real outlaws took advantage of this image, and one of them had the cheek to address his ransom notes from a tree. The windy castle of Greenwood. Terrifying.
Very scary.
So this one, with his pointed ears and goat-like face, this green man at Worcester Cathedral resembles the classical god Pan. Similarly, there is a carving in the French abbey of Saint Denis where the old god Sylvanus is shown as a foliate head. This is not an authentic classical tradition, but the sculptor may have been thinking of the Sylvani, or forest fairies, who were wont to trick lonely travellers and could take the virginity of an incautious village girl. So we keep talking about fairies, don't we? You know, and I always think the fairies are our version of the jinn. You know, they're just taking on a different form, and that's just what we call them. So they say that there's no kind of, they can't really figure out where this started, but I would say it may be these carvings started everywhere. You know, they started everywhere. Maybe that's why they can't figure out where they started.
Yeah.
Because everywhere has got its own version of the fairy or the jinn or the whatever, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that these spirits might be what they classify as chthonic, so spirits of the land and possibly the underworld?
I don't know. I always thought I think they're different things, Mari. I think they're different things, and I think we in our modern day are thinking that they're the same things. You know what I mean? Because if I just quickly go through these, look at that. I would say that is nothing like that. And look at that.
They had hierarchies, I think, because I've been listening to just recently deceased researcher Jake Stratton Kent, and he's got quite an overview of it, and he talked about you know, levels of spirits. So I wonder if that, you know, we're missing that nuance.
Oh, Mari's turned into the jinn, I think. There she is.
Hey.
Oh, you went all a little bit demonic yourself there.
I've been known to from time to time.
Did you see what happened to your little self? You looked like you were shape-shifted into a demon.
I think it's when you're patching someone in, and then it goes kind of really still.
Yeah.
But I shall depart and
All right.
join
thank
the
you,
live
Mari,
chat.
and you know, now you've done it once, we'll be getting you up here again. So
That's it.
that's how that works.
Many thanks,
Yep.
Mari.
Roped in by the Frouds. Excellent. All right. Thank you,
See
guys.
you soon.
Take
See,
it
we'll
easy.
stay in the chat box.
Yeah.
I will. Okay. Bye.
All right.
Hi, Nick.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Nick.
Hiya. Thanks for coming in.
That's all right. No worries. I have to admit, I've just come from a party, a Hawaii party, as you can see. I'm a little bit tipsy, but I'm not drunk. I made a
It's
special
fine.
occasion for you, Liz.
Oh,
I've
bless
got
you.
everything
Well,
prepared.
you're a little bit tipsy, and I'm out of my head on bloody opiate. So between the two of us, we make a right
It's
bloody.
going to be
pair.
an amazing situation.
But you've been to a party. My excuse is chronic pain. How depressing is that?
Oh no, you feeling any better, Liz?
I'm just going to moan about it for about a month. They've cut a big hole out of me, Nick. But I'm not going to go into that detail of it, but they've cut a hole It's not very nice. That's why I'm dressed like this. Mari, this is what you bought me, and it's kept me company. I've had it as a shawl. I've had it as a pillow. I've had it as a knee cushion. So this gift has been the gift that keeps on giving. So Nick, we've been filling in time and talking about the Green Man and not really know what we're talking about. So hopefully you can come in with some actual real knowledge and make it a little bit more professional.
Okay. Well, what I have for you today, I've done this presentation many times before, and I'm going to expand on this. The topic today is German flying saucers. But what I have is technically a 6-hour presentation. But I'm gonna really like shorten it down and speed ahead. So the idea is what I'm gonna do is present to you and your viewers today the whole backstory of German flying saucers from World War II to present day, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, it's everyone's heard of German flying saucers. I refuse to use the N word, Nazi, because YouTube doesn't quite like that.
It doesn't like it. It doesn't like the other N word. Doesn't like a lot of N words, to be honest.
It doesn't like a lot of N words. That's right, Liz. Yeah. So I will say German flying saucers of World War II.
Perfect.
So the idea is just I'm going to break everything down. I've got loads of pictures to show you. I'm going to restrict the amount of videos I'm going to show because copyright issues and all that sort of malarkey.
Yeah.
So let's bring up. I should have everything sorted. I've got about.
I'm going to mute us. I'm going to mute us.
I don't.
No. I'm going to mute us because we tend to make a noise.
That's fine. That's all right. No worries. Liz, I'm going to bring up a video. Can you see that at all on your control panel? There we go. Right. Okay. Right. Let's start with this then. Okay. So this is my collection of German saucers books. I bought these books from eBay all around the world, and they cost me a lot of money. Some of them have cost me a lot of money. So this is the amount of research that I've done into this, because the internet only gives you a certain amount of information. It's very incoherent. It's not very precise. So for me, I wanted to go back to the original source of where these stories came from. So this is just the outline. It's only a small handful of books that I've read. I've read every single one of these to understand the German flying saucer program of World War II. So let's bring up, and if you want to ask me any questions, guys, go ahead and fire away. I'm not claiming to this information to be gospel in any stretch of the imagination. This is just my research that I've done and put a timeline together from the end of the war to where we are now in regards of German flying saucers. So let's bring up this chap here. Tell me if you can see that, Liz. There we go. Right. Victor Schauberger. Now, this is an honorable mention because Victor Schauberger gets brought up a lot about the German flying saucers. He did build some sort of device, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's bring this microphone a bit closer. So Victor Schauberger, he was a naturalist, forest caretaker, philosopher, and inventor. He was born in 1855 in Austria, and he worked primarily in the forest. So he was very in tune with nature and obviously the way of water. Now, water is very important for Victor Schauberger because as he was learning about forestry, he became very interested in how water would flow down rivers, especially how fish trout would seem to propel themselves upstream. And what Victor Schauberger realized is as water falls down the stream and it hits rocks, it will actually produce a very circular motion. Now, this is just the idea of torsion physics. Now, this is implosion theory, which we're going to sort of kind of gloss over a little bit because we don't want to be here all day. But this is the idea of what Victor Schauberger, let's bring this back a little bit, created. So the idea is fish would, I don't know if you got me on screen at the moment. I don't know if you can see me. So the idea, as water's going down the stream, as it hits rocks, it will actually spiral like this. It do like a vortex circle. And this is what fish would literally propel themselves upstream. And this is the method that Victor Schauberger used for devices. And so you see this picture online. this is a water generator. It's actually a water purifier. He wanted to purify water by using copper pipes and everything. So if you see this online, people said, "Oh, this is just it's free energy water, a water generator," and it's not. It's actually a water purifier. So we've taken all the not the minerals, all the nasty stuff out of water, and actually have it a bit more cleaner. So in the 1930s, Victor Schauberger met with Hitler. To discuss his way of how water would flow and if he can actually put that application into devices. And he created this in the 30s called the repulsin. And this is the actual picture of it in the museum. Victor Schauberger has a museum in Austria. And he has this device here that the idea is I should bring it back a little bit. There are copper tubings in here. And what would happen, water would flow in and air would flow in, and it's actually spinning at such a rapid rate. The velocities were so great, it will actually lift up the idea. Now, there's no actual photographs of this actually in flight, but this is a very, very small device that he created for a new method of propulsion. And allegedly, this device here apparently took off and it went through the ceiling at one test flight, apparently. But like I said, there's no real photographs of this in flight. A lot of people say that Victor Schauberger was part of the Vril Society and the Vril, and that's not true. We'll get to the Vril a bit later. But the Vril Society, Victor Schauberger had nothing to do with it. He dealt with torsion physics and water vortex and stuff like that. So he applied that motion into this repulsin device. And here it is. This is the actual device he created. There is something missing on top, what they can't really figure out. Now, I would love to see someone actually replicate this, build it, and see if it actually works. Because this is Victor Schauberger's original device, they are not going to test it because they don't want to destroy it, because it turns at such a rapid rate, the velocities will turn. It could probably fall apart, basically, because this was developed in the 30s. So Victor Schauberger, like I said, was part of, this is a typical example you will see online. Victor Schauberger's device, part of the German flying saucers. And I'm stressing you now that he had nothing to do with the German flying saucer program as such. He created the device, a new type of propulsion system, implosion theory, but he didn't create this bottom picture on the right-hand side here, okay? This is just, I can't find any publication of Victor Schauberger's involvement in the German flying saucers, which I'm going to be talking about in a minute. Okay, so when I talk about German flying saucers, there are two sides to the story. One is the anti-gravity side, which we're going to be talking about a bit later. But after the war, 1945, we're going to be talking about flying discs. Now, I'm talking about this here. Here's a typical example. This is an artist's impression. This is the first model that was built in 1941 to 1945. And now these were turbine-driven aircraft. These were, you can imagine, you got a central cockpit here, and you got a fan going all the way around that. The exterior of the craft would have these jets that will be mounted at the bottom of the craft, and the idea is that the jets will spin this propeller fan a bit like a helicopter, and this is the method of propulsion. Okay, now this is from 1942 to 1945. So this is just another artist's impression, which I'll get to in a minute. So just to give you the rough idea of what the Germans allegedly built in 1941 to 1945. Now, there are no actual photographs of this. Well, there's some sketchy photographs. So let's get into the inventors and the engineers that were allegedly involved. So Niels Christiansen. I've got my notes here. So in early 1948, in a Brazilian newspaper, let's start from the beginning. So Niels Christiansen, he was a German spy who was imprisoned in Brazil in 1945. And he claims he built flying saucers for the Germans in as early as 1942. Now, he was banged up in prison in Brazil for 30 years for espionage. And one way he wanted to, this is just some newspaper articles from Brazil. So this is how far back we're going. This is from 1945. This is how far back we're going. So Niels Christiansen said he wanted to he said that he built a flying saucer and that he can replicate that device for the Brazilian government or army for his freedom. Now, he hasn't really backed anything up at all. These are just stories and claims. I think he just wanted to put this story out there to get out of jail, basically. So he was offering his services for the Brazilian government to build flying saucers. He also mentioned that he built an engine that had no running parts and it didn't have any oil or nothing like that. But again, these are just claims. So Niels Christensen was the first person in the public knowledge to actually build these flying disc-shaped aircraft. Now, we're moving on from Niels Christensen to these four people here. Now, you will see this a lot on the internet. So for the first, to the left-hand side here, the top corner, is Rudolf Schriever. And to the right is Richard Mithe. And then to the bottom left is Giuseppe Belluzzo. And the big question mark is the Riddler. No, it's not the Riddler. His name is actually Otto Hobbermall. So these four people here were involved on the turbine-driven aircraft that was built from 1941 to 1945. And here are three artist impressions from a book from the 70s that was called Secret Weapons, Nazi Flying Saucers. I said the N word there. I should have said that. But here are three artist impressions of what was built from 1941 to 1945. You had the first model here. You had the second model. So the first model was from 1941 to 42. The second model was from 43 to 44. And the last model, which is the V7, which was from 44 to 45. So let's start off with this fella here, Giuseppe Belluzzo, born on the 25th of November, 1876. He was a mechanical engineer, a politician for the Mussolini regime. So he was Italian. In 1899, he won a reward for his study in hydraulic turbine. And in 25th of March, 1950, he came forward in an Italian newspaper called Giallo d'Italia, and which Giuseppe Belluzzo claims that he had designed a flying saucer for the Germans in World War II. Now, this is from 1942, as you can see here. Now, Giuseppe Belluzzo, apparently later on, as I'll go into more detail, he was part of the flying saucer program, that he built the flying saucers. He didn't. He literally just designed it and the Germans perfected it. Now, this here is the idea of these flying saucers is rotation, okay? Now, I'm not too sure what this is as such, but as you can see here, my cursor, these are propulsion systems that are turning the circular disc shaped in a circle, which is the method of propulsion. So remember, rotation is a thing, a bit like Victor Schauberger. So he hasn't really gone into a massive amounts of detail. Here's just another impression of his method of propulsion. I haven't really gone into it as such. But again, this is another newspaper article from books that I've got detailing his propulsion system. Let's just skip through that. So again, Giuseppe Belluzzo in the 25th of March 1950 came forward. An Italian newspaper said he developed a flying saucer. Sorry, I'm all over the place at the moment. So 5 days later, after Giuseppe Belluzzo came forward with his claims, this guy came forward. Now, this guy is called Rudolf Schriever. He's a German engineer. He had a mechanical engineering degree in Prague in the 1920s, and he worked at the Heinkel factory. Now, the Heinkel factory was developing new types of aircraft. Now, these were jet-propelled aircraft, whole new types of propulsion systems that was designed and developed during World War II. I have to admit, the Germans were extremely advanced. I can't stress that enough. They were way ahead of their time. It's actually quite fascinating how genius they were in terms of technology, weaponry, and aviation and stuff like that. So 5 days afterwards, which would be the 25th of March 1950, Rudolf Schriever came forward and said that he designed and built a flying saucer for the Germans. Now, this is the original magazine. It wasn't a newspaper, it was a magazine. And here is an artist's impression of what the flying saucer was. Now, it was a bit like the pictures that I showed you before. So what we have here is a flying, I wouldn't call it a flying saucer. This is a flying disc. This is a very cylindrical disc-shaped aircraft, and then you have a central plexiglass cockpit in the middle. The person standing up, I wouldn't imagine this person would be standing up. You'd actually be sitting down. But like I said, this is just an artist impression so far. So you've got a central plexiglass cockpit, and around the cockpit you have the fan, and underneath you can see my cursor here. Here are the jets to propel the fan in a circular motion, and then you have extra jets here to propel the craft forward. Okay, so this is just a very basic design in 1941. But there's a problem with this, because as I got all these books here, there are many different artists' impression of the Schriever disc. Basically, many impressions of it. So who knows really what it is? Here's just a typical example of how many artists' impression it is. So no one really knows, but the original newspaper from 1950, apparently this is the bottom picture here, as you can see here. That is apparently what the disc-shaped craft looked like. No pictures of it. There's no pictures of it whatsoever. Here is a more detailed picture of it. This is the original article from 1950. Let's just skip forward here. So this is the first model I just showed you here that was built from 1941 to 42. The second model, which is more or less the same sort of compound, but it was more heightened up to actually fly better, because the first model was very unstable. Apparently it didn't fly well, and apparently it crashed during test flight. So they built another one to sort of upstandard it, but apparently it didn't fly that well. So remember the 4 engineers I talked about earlier? You got Rudolf Schriever, Otto Hubbermoor, Giuseppe Belluzzo, and Rudolf Schriever. All 4 of these engineers got together in 1944 to build this. Now, this is called the V7. V7. Now, this is a whole type of different type of propulsion systems. Now, as you can see here, it's more of a discus-shaped aircraft. In fact, I've got a better artist impression of it here. Right. You will see this on the internet. People think this is an anti-gravity flying saucer. It's not. This is the V7, okay? So here you got, on the exterior of this discus here, see the little black sort of blobs here? This was actually jets. They had 12 BMW 028 turbo aggregated engines that went all around the exterior of this craft. So instead of having the propeller fan, they'll have these powerful jets, 12 of them, surrounding this craft, and this was their method of propulsion. Again, there's no real photographs of it except for this one. Apparently this was tested above the Baltic in February of 1945. Now remember that date, 1945, because I'm going to show you a picture a bit later that is a bit strange. So apparently this is a photograph of it tested in the Baltic in February of 1945, 2 months before the World War II has ended. So again, if you see this online, this is the V7. So again, not anti-gravity. This was using jets to propel this aircraft. Who knows where these engineers went after the war? So Rudolf Schriever apparently immigrated to America in the 50s. He apparently became a truck driver for the US Army, which is kind of hard to believe. But I reckon he was probably more or less employed into the American Army to build these flying discs, because the Americans knew that what he was doing, Rudolf Schriever. But apparently he died in 1952. No real reports of that. To the right here, we have oh god, these bloody names. I'm trying to think. Richard Methe. He apparently immigrated to America as well to join the VZ9 Avrocar program in the 1950s. To the bottom here, Giuseppe Belluzzo never really came forward with any of his claims. He died in the 50s again, but he didn't really came forward with any further details whether or not he actually designed a flying saucer or actually built a flying saucer. So very skeptical. And the last one, Otto Hubbermoor, no idea. There's actually no information about him whatsoever. There's just sort of documentations from the CIA and FBI that mention Otto Hubbermoor. So yeah, these were the 4 engineers primarily involved in the disc-shaped aircraft of World War II from 1941 to 1945. So let's skip that and moving forward to George Klein. Now, these were newspaper reports from the 1950s talking about German flying saucers. Now, George Klein claims that he was involved in the flying saucer program of World War II. And here, it states that the first flying saucer that was built in Germany was actually test flight in 1945 in Prague. that's not exactly true because he changes his statements after a while. So George Klein claims he had helped build a flying saucer for the Germans in World War II, and he was part of the program. Now, this document here states about George Klein. Now, I'm a very crap reader, so I'm going to try and read this properly. So this is a CIA document mentioning German flying saucers in 1952. So let's just read this. Flying saucers have been known to be has been known to be actually. I can't even read this properly. Let me zoom in a little bit on. So yeah, basically it's stating here that
it's very rubbish print, Nick. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still trying to soak
Yeah.
up of you. So yeah, it's
known to
basically saying
be
that
an actuality since the possibility of their
is it construction there?
it's
Construction was
really
proven.
it's yeah
Yeah.
drawn
So
up
basically it's
by
saying
German engineers towards the end of World War II.
Yeah,
That is
That's it,
difficult
yeah.
to read.
It's difficult to read. Yeah, sorry, it's quite blur on here. But basically,
Yeah,
it's
don't
saying
worry about that.
German flying saucers were built on this document here from the CIA that the Germans built flying saucers near the end of World War II. And George Klein was a German engineer, stated recently that through many people believe that flying saucers to be a post-war development, they were actually a planning stage of German aircraft factories as early as 1941. George said that he was an engineer for the Ministry of Speer in 1942, and he was the Ministry of Armament and Ammunition for the Third Reich. And he was stationed in Prague in 14th of February 1945, where the first experiment of the flying saucer would take place. Now, I think this was the V7. Okay, this is the last flying saucer that was built. In regards to the flying saucers, no one knows where they went. George Klein stated in this document that they more or less were destroyed, or the Russians or the Americans got hold of them. Here is just more detail. I'm not going to read through this because I'm a crap reader, but this basically stating that George Klein was part of the flying saucer program. But he also mentions here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. He mentions the word Otto Hobbermore and Rudolf Schriever, which are the two engineers that I mentioned earlier. Okay. So this is like the first mention of Otto Hobbermore, but Rudolf Schriever was mentioned 2 years before this in 1950. And now this is from 1952. Here's Schriever died recently in Burma. I'll just skip all that anyway, but you can pause that. You can read it for yourself. Skip all that. Let's have a little look. No, that's it. Right. Okay. So George Klein is out the way. He claims that he was part of the flying saucer program. To this guy here, Andreas Epp, Joseph Andreas Epp. Now, this is where it gets quite interesting. Let's have a little look. Just trying to grab my evidence here. George Klein. Okay, right. So George Klein claims he was involved with the flying saucer program of 1941 to 1945. He was a Luftwaffe pilot, engineer, and inventor. He claims that his plans were stolen by the Air Ministry of Berlin in 1939, and that his plans for a flying saucer was actually used for the disc-shaped aircraft that I just showed you. Okay, so he's been claiming that his plans were stolen in the late 30s. Here's just another picture of George Klein. Now, George Klein, back in when he was a kid, he was fascinated by aircraft. In fact, he was so fascinated by aircraft, he would build these very small flying aircraft, like small little models, like these sort of tiny little propeller models that you see. And apparently they tested and they did work. And he became a fascination of aircraft through his teens. This is like 1930, so he'd have been a teenager at this time. So he joined the army. The Air Force, to learn about how to become a Luftwaffe pilot and how the aircraft flew, basically. That's the idea of what fascinated George Klein. Not George Klein. Bloody hell. What's his bloody name? Joseph Andreas Epp, sorry. I'm all over the bloody place. So yeah, let's just skip forward. So this is what he developed in the 1950s. Okay, this was after the war. Now, this was called the Omega disc, and it almost resembles like the V7. Remember the V7 I showed you? It had the 12 BMW engines, sort of turbine engines going around. Now, he says that this was stolen. That plan was stolen and was used for the V7. But this aircraft was created in the 50s, not the 40s. So it was a bit sketchy. Here's just an overall picture of the model. I don't know if this actually flew or not. There's no actual pictures as such, but he did create this model in the 50s. He got that inspiration from this. It's called the, I'm not going to swear, it's called the Fock FW61. This was almost like the first helicopter that was built by the Germans. And he saw this in, I think it was like the 30s, the late 30s. And he became fascinated by how the propellers would propel the aircraft up. Because remember, it's all stationary. It didn't need to take off. It was actually lifted up vertically. So he applied that motion, the propeller blades here, and applied it to basically this idea of a whole new method of propulsion system. So in this is it in flight. You can see it. So it's like our first helicopter, really. So he taken that design of the blades of the helicopter and applied it to a flying disc-shaped aircraft. This is from 1939. Now, this is what he submitted to the Air Ministry in Berlin in 1939 with his plans of how this disc-shaped aircraft worked. As you can see here, it's almost like rotation. Again, this is the main theme of these flying saucers. Again, this is like the Omega disc, and here's the V7. You almost can see there's some sort of resemblance behind it. Okay, so throughout the 40s, he knew that Giuseppe Belluzzo, Otto Huber Moore, and them lot were building these flying disc-shaped aircraft. He knew that was some sort of project going on, and he was stressing that, look, they've stolen my designs. I'm real peed off. I want to see whether or not they've actually taken my design and applied it to a flying saucer. So this is where it gets really interesting, because this photograph was taken by Joseph Andreas Epp himself. Now, this is February of 1945. One day he woke up, he was pissed off. Like, right, I'm going to go to the testing ground in Prague where they're testing these flying disc-shaped aircraft. I'm going to find out what's actually going on. So it was, according to his book, his bibliography, he said that he went off to the testing ground in Prague of February of 1945. He stopped the car to check the map for coordinates, when suddenly he looked up and he sees this bloody flying saucer flying. And he actually took photographs of it, 2 photographs. Now, this is actually the second one. And here is the original picture of the flying saucer. In fact, I'll play a clip in a minute. So here it is, the flying saucer in Prague of 1945. But this is where it gets a bit sketchy. Okay, I tell you what, Liz, I'm going to bring up a video of Joseph Andreas Epp, because he's going to talk about what he photographed, and he knew about the programs of the flying saucers of World War II. Cool. Bring this up.
Described the various German flashing flying aircraft that they saw as Foo Fighters, fireballs.
Right. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Big mushroom.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
All right, you got it on the screen. Right, fantastic. Right, I'm just going to go to the part where... let's have a look. There it is. Okay, so this is Joseph Andreas Epp interview in a German UFO documentary, which is on my channel. You can find it. I've got all the UFO documentaries, the German flying saucer documentaries on my channel, which is called UFOs Secrets of the Third Reich, that came out in 1994. So let's listen to what Joseph Andreas Epp has to say.
Gemacht, auch vom Kampfgeschwader 26. Und zwar haben wir Torpedo geholt von Kiel, heute now.
The 26th Fighter Squadron had been ordered to fly from Kiel to Norway in order to resupply the 30 Fighter Squadron, the Bamba Command. On the return flight to Hamburg, I took a model of my aircraft design with me. And taking advantage of the opportunity, actually
I should stress that the guy speaking in German is Joseph Andreas Epp, and he got an English narrator. All right.
forward to Ernst Cadet in the Reichsministry in
zum
Berlin.
Abschicken zum Reichsluftfahrtministerium nach Berlin an UDET. UDET hat dieses Modell weitergegeben an
UDET
Peenemünde.
passed this model on to the research establishment in Peenemünde, where tests were later carried out. Over and over again, I later heard reports from people who were working in Prague on the construction of flying discs, and progress in this field was actually being made. I also knew that Habermohl and Schreiber were in possession of my model
Und ich
and had
wusste
begun
auch,
working
dass
on practical
Habermohl und
applications.
Schriever mein Modell praktisch bekommen hätten zum Ausarbeiten, zum Rekonstruieren. Und diese Flugscheibe hat der Schriever auf seine Art, seine
Schreiber
Gedanken
made certain
umgebaut.
alterations to my plans,
Während ich
whereas,
später
as I was later for
feststellen
certain,
musste, dass
Habermohl had
Habermohl
remained true to my
sich
original
an
design.
meinen
The second prototype was a flying
Konstruktionsplänen
disc,
gehalten hatte.
42 meters long, and was
Die
built by
zweite
Mr.
Sache
Beluzzo
war,
in
ein
Breslau.
zweites Modell wurde gebaut, nicht Modell wurde gebaut, eine 42 Meter große Flugscheibe wurde gebaut durch Miete und Beluzzo. Und zwar in Breslau. Und diese Flugscheibe sollte dann, wie
This
ich
flying disc,
erfahren
as I
habe,
discovered,
sollte
was flown
dann
to
nach
Spitzbergen in Norway
Spitzbergen
and should have
geflogen
returned to
werden und
Rechlin
sollte
on
auf
a
einen
directional beam with an
Richtstrahl
unknown
mit einer
transmission frequency and
unbekannten
code word.
Sendeskala, eine Nummer für den Sender, nicht, was überhaupt gar nicht benutzt wurde von anderen, sollte auf diesen Richtstrahl
However,
die
due
Flugscheibe
to a bad
nach
landing in
Berlin
Spitzbergen,
zurückfliegen.
it was damaged
Sie ist aber bei der
and was
Landung in
unable to complete the
Spitzbergen
return flight
so
home.
zerstört worden, weil die ist heftig abgeschossen und konnte dann nicht mehr zurückfliegen. Damit
Okay, so this is where he talks about the photograph.
After that, I drove into the hills just outside Prague,
in die Berge
where the secret testing ground was supposed to have been located. I had my Leica A camera with me when suddenly I saw
und
such a flying
plötzlich habe ich
saucer.
dann so eine Flugscheibe
I was
gesehen.
wounded at the
Und
time,
das war
so I know that it was
im
November, December,
November,
although the
Dezember.
test flight was not due to take place
Und
until
im
the following
Februar waren
February.
die eigentlichen
Someone had made an
Testflüge, aber das
unscheduled
waren
test flight,
Probenflüge, die man
and this is
gemacht
what I
hat.
saw
Und
coming
ich sah
towards
so
me.
etwas
It had no
ankommen.
wings,
Das waren keine
absolutely none.
Tragflächen, gar nichts. Ich habe
I
den
took a photo
genommen
and wound on the
und
film,
dann weiter
but it was
transportiert.
already
Nochmal, da war
directly
sie
over
aber
me.
schon über mir.
Then I took
Habe
a
ich dann
second photo,
das Foto
and I could
gemacht.
see that it was a flying
So
gyroscope,
schnell
a
war
flying
es und habe
saucer.
gesehen, dass es ein Flugkreisel war.
So there we go. In 1945, Joseph goes to Prague to the testing ground where they're testing these flying saucers, only to bloody see a flying saucer flying over his head in Prague. I mean, is this an original photograph of a German flying saucer? It could well be. Who knows? Who knows? So that's just Joseph Andreas Epp's account of what he saw. But this is the problem, guys. I'm going to show you a photograph that was part of my collection, and I go, hold on a minute, something's not quite right here. Is my am I on screen, Liz?
Yeah.
Is that photograph on screen?
Oh, sorry, Nick.
There we go.
There we go.
No, that's fine. Don't worry, it's all good. All good. Right, let's bring this up because this is where it gets interesting. Okay, this is the original photograph of Joseph Andreas Epp. Okay, now you can see there are some water damage here. See the black, sort of faded black. You can see here in the middle of the photograph. That's actually water damage. Okay, but I want you to pay attention to the branches on the left-hand side here. Okay. So as I'm going through my collection of old UFO photographs, I come across this. And I go, oh, hold on a minute. This looks very familiar. But it's actually in a book here called UFOs Volume 1 Photographs from 1985. So let's just read this here. Right. This description here was from the 29th of August, 1962. It was taken in Italy by a general, and they witnessed this flying saucer flying over in Italy, and it's witnessed by the daughter and the mother. But here's the original Joseph Andreas Epp picture, and here's another original one. Now look, to the left is Joseph Andreas Epp, and to the right is from UFO Photographs Volume 1. Now, you tell me whether or not that's the same photograph.
That's ridiculous.
Is exactly the same. Now, what they've done, whoever got hold of this photograph has actually made the right-hand picture actually a bit more contrast. They've actually blackened it up a bit more. But this is the same photograph. And I'm going, hold on a minute. Do you know a researcher called Rendell Stevens? Have you heard of that UFO researcher before? He was part of the Billy Meyer case back in the 70s. He's very kind of bit untrustworthy, in my opinion. But UFO Photographs Volume 1 was written by Randall Stevens. Now, I want to know how the hell did he get this photograph in 1985 when Joseph Andres Epp didn't show the photograph until the early 90s in that documentary? And I'm going, hold on a minute here. There's something I can't either. So I got a feeling reading through Joseph Andres Epp's book called Die Reality der Flugscheiben, which means the reality of flying discs. It seems like he inserted himself into the flying saucer mythos, basically, because in the full interview with him in 1991, this is like a 20-minute interview with him. He has all the books on German flying saucers that I have. So I'm going, hold on a minute. Okay, this is it. This is it, Liz. He might have read all these books and then suddenly inserted himself into the mythos. And possibly, a possibility, he had faked this photograph in the 80s and then gave it to Rendell Stevens. And then when the documentary came out, he was asked to come for this documentary. He then showed this photograph. It is a possibility, but these photographs, it's exactly the same. Look at the tree lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm very skeptical on Joseph Andres Epp's claims. I'm very skeptical about the photograph. Again, it's very sketchy, but
I mean, even the story is a little bit beyond belief, isn't it? I just pulled over and there was my flying saucer.
Exactly. And the thing is, with his book here, his bibliography is all in German. This was published in 2002, but Joseph Andres Epp died in 1997. So either his family has escalated or sort of, in a way, sort of propelled him as, the father of German flying saucers, which is not really true at all, in my opinion. Anyway. So Joseph Andres Epp, George Klein, all these engineers must be taken with a very, very pinch of salt. So from that, this is a photograph taken by Joseph Andres Epp's friend, who apparently immigrated to the Soviets, and the Soviets apparently built a flying disc aircraft, not anti-gravity. It was the same sort of a different type of propulsion system, but here's quite fascinating. You can see the disc on a vertical level, and you can see the buildings in the background. It's quite fascinating, but whether or not this is true or not, who knows? So it's very, very sketchy. So let's move away. So let's move away from the flying saucers, the flying disc-shaped aircraft that I was talking about. So that was from 1941 to 1945. And that mythos has been going on since, like I said, 1945 to 1990, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's move away from that and let's just concentrate on Foo Fighters, because yes, we're talking about German flying saucers, but I've added the Bell and Foo Fighters in there because it's part of German technology. Now, anyone on the History Channel would say, oh, Foo Fighters, yeah, they were extraterrestrial technology. No, they weren't. No, it's actually German technology. So here is a typical photograph of a Foo Fighter. In the 50s, here's just another picture of him. See, these were balls of light that would track Allied aircraft. They would more or less sit on the wings, and they would sometimes perform these fantastic maneuvers and stuff like that people have been talking about. There's a book here by Graham Randall called European Foo Fighters of World War II from 1941 to 1945. And he's actually gone into the National Archives and actually dug out all the Foo Fighter reports from the Army Fighter Squadron. And it's actually quite fascinating, really, when you read some of these reports. But here it's just, and these are actual pictures of Foo Fighters from 1940s. here is a extract from a newspaper clipping talking about these balls of light in December of 1945. So this is near the end of the war. Okay, this is a fantastic photograph of a Foo Fighter, and it's right here.
Wow.
Now, Mr. Mark, you tell me, is that ball of light leaving a trail, or do you think that is part of an aircraft? Because here, here's the propeller blade, and I'm not too sure whether or not that is part of the
Oh
aircraft, or
yeah.
It does look to
or
be
if it's
part of it.
actually-
Yeah.
if it's actually, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's hard to say really, because the reports of Foo Fighters would actually say they will actually leave a trail, like either a smoke trail or a glowing trail behind it. And there were persistent reports that these were actually German technology probes, actual transmission frequency probes. Okay, now let's just talk about that, because this is what the Americans believed in 1945. Now, this document here was from a book called Hitler's Flying Saucers by Henry Stevens. And this is an actual document from the FBI, which is the United States Strategic Air Force in Europe, Office of Director of Intelligence and Evolution of German Capability of 1945, in 1945, I should say. And in here, right, before I get to that, apparently these probes, according to the Germans, were described as fliegende Schildkröte. Now that means flying tortoise. These devices look like tortoise shells on the ground. And the idea is that they will send these probes up and they will sit on the ends of the aircraft, and it will give off a very strong magnetic field. And the idea is that these probes were designed to actually down military aircraft. Okay. We'll get to this in a minute. This apparently is a Foo Fighter, apparently, which we'll get to that in a minute, but it's not, because this is actually a model that was created in the 80s, unfortunately, which I found out from one of my books. So if you see this, which I'll show in a documentary in a minute, this isn't a Foo Fighter at all. There's no real photographs of Foo Fighters as being probes. This was just taken from models of the Howner Boom Vril and stuff like that, which we'll get to in a minute. So in this document that I showed you, in the extract here, it says, what do you think that name says? Proo bombs? Proo bombs?
Yeah, Proo bombs.
Proo bombs, yeah. So in here, this is what the FBI is saying in the 50s. So Proo bombs as Foo Fighters was occasionally reported by pilots and testimonies of prisoners of wars and escapees to describe these weapons as radio-controlled, jet-propelled, still-nose, short-ranged, high-performance ramming weapon, and it can go up to speeds at 525 miles an hour. And in here, it mentions a specific type of fuel mixture that was used for these Foo Fighters, basically. So they're in the beginning, well, the end of the war from 1945, they believe that these were probes that the Germans had developed, some sort of new technology, that inside these Foo Fighters will have these klystron tubes. The klystron tubes are used for like radio transmission, like guitar amps and stuff like that. But these ones that the Germans were making were so advanced, can actually disrupt ignition systems of the aircraft. And there are some reports of aircraft actually downing in, I think it's East Germany, when they had these Foo Fighters apparently flying around and all that. So this is the early stages of German technology to down military aircraft. Allegedly, nothing's really confirmed, but Foo Fighters was allegedly, these were transmission frequency probes. Okay, so what's happened recently? Professor Simon Holland. Have you ever heard of him? Professor Simon Holland? No, he's a self-claimed professor. I'm not going to get into details, but he
there's a lot of them about.
Yeah, especially when you worked for the BBC, I'm a bit skeptical. But yeah,
I'm sat next to one here.
Cheek of
it. So he released a video last year talking about Foo Fighters, and what these were ionized plasma balls that was reflected by radar dishes. Now, first of all, the Germans and the English, especially the English, were developing radar systems. Okay, the British would have a radar system that would track aircraft, but the British went boop, boop, boop. So it had these it will pinpoint little dots in the sky to track the aircraft. So that was the British, but the Germans developed a radar that went basically like a bloody
Of course
like a
he did.
laser weapon. Literally, yeah, I went a bit Hitler there, didn't I? Basically, like a big searchlight. That's what the Germans had developed, like a big searchlight. Now, what happened? These radar dishes were so powerful. This is it here. This is the actual dish itself. Here's another not art impression. This is an actual picture of the radar dish. These radars were so powerful, it would actually produce a very small plasma ball in the atmosphere. Now, this would either show up through the contrails of the aircraft itself. Obviously, you produce a contrail behind it, and that's what will actually show up, either if that was one way, or if it's a very misty night, you've got a lot of cloud cover, these balls of light will actually show up, because what will happen, these radar dishes were actually tracking the Allied aircraft. Now, bear in mind, in the late 40s, 1944 to 1945, the English and Americans were doing regular bombing raids of Germany, Berlin and stuff like that, and especially Dresden. Now, these radar dishes were based in Dresden, which we did bomb the crap out of that, controversially, back in the 40s. And these were spotted. These balls of light were spotted in Dresden. So Simon Holland is saying that what Foo Fighters were just ionized plasma balls. That's what it was, just from radar dishes. It's a possibility. It's a very it's a good possibility. I mean, anyone would say, yeah, that's true. But reading through Graham Randall's book in regards to Foo Fighters were reported as silver disc-shaped aircraft. They had glowing tails behind them. They had smoke trails. So it doesn't really prove that radar dishes were the contribution for Foo Fighters. Is not at all, really. So it's a possibility, but it's not really, because those disc-shaped aircraft were noticed. Actually, one report of I think it's the 10th Fighter Squadron in England that was flying over Berlin in 1945, and these pilots would notice these silver disc-shaped aircraft. Now, these were those small disc-shaped aircraft that would rise from the ground, and as it gets to a certain altitude of, I don't know, 25,000 feet or above, then it started to glow a specific color because it had a specific fuel mixture in it. I don't know if I got the document here. I don't really have it. No, I haven't got it. Bloody hell. But there is a documentation from a prisoner of war that stated that these Foo Fighters had a specific fuel mixture, and when it gets to a certain height of altitude, it will actually glow green, red, and orange. And this is what the fighter squadrons were noticing at the time of the war. So is a speculation whether or not the Germans have actually developed probes, which, how advanced they were, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I'm not ruling out this as well as radar dishes showing plasma balls in the atmosphere. So it's a 50-50 thing, really. But Foo Fighters were a real thing. There are photographs of them. There are plenty of testimonies during the war, but there's been no talk about them after the war. This is the thing. Yeah, balls of light have been seeing in the sky after the war, but nothing what the English and Americans were seeing during World War II. It's completely different. But again, that's Foo Fighters for the time being. You can go on my channel, Cosmic Twilight, and I've done a deep dive into what Foo Fighters were as being probes. I'll go into like the whole shebang into that. So we've had the flying disc-shaped aircraft. We've had the Foo Fighters. Now let's move on to the current day German flying saucers of Maria Orsic, who's this beautiful lady here, the Hannibal flying saucers, and the real flying saucers. This is the occult mythology of German flying saucers. Okay, so this, if you go on the internet now, this is what you will see. Okay, the anti-gravity side. Now this gets quite interesting, actually. So have you guys have heard about Vril? We've all heard about the Vril Society. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's just start off where Vril came from. Let's just bring this up. Just a slight history of Rill. So this book here, called The Coming Race by Edward D. Leighton, came out in 1871. Yes, 1871. And this is a story of a traveler who discovers an underground civilization in a mining shaft. So he goes into the mining shaft, he discovers an underground civilization that was called the Vril Ya. Vril Ya, that's what it was called. This advanced civilization would use the power of Vril, use it for powering machines, I should say, telepathic communications, healing properties, and even destroying planets. So it's a very mystical force that Vril accomplishes, basically, into. It's a bit like Chi, Piranha, and Ki. You know, those energies from. Mark, you probably know more than me about that. You know what I mean by Piranha and Ki and Chi energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say I know a lot, but yes, I know what you mean. I certainly have. Yeah.
Well, martial arts people use it a lot as well, don't they? They use the chi to push the energy back. They use the opponent's.
Exactly. So Vril is kind of a part of that. It's just a whole nother mythology in general, basically. So Vril is part of Chi, Piranha, like a mystical energy as such. So this book came out in 1871. Talks about an underground civilization called the Vril Ya that use healing properties and various things of Vril. So 1871. Let's skip forward to this lady called Helena Blavatsky, the founder of theology. She written this book here, The Secret Doctrine, which talks about Vril as a mystical force. I'm just skipping over loosely because I can be here all day talking about this. This book here, The Secret Doctrine, that came out in 1888, talks about Vril as a mystical force, an energy source, energy force. Again, Helena Blavatsky, she written this book in 1877 called Isis Unveiled, which again talks about Vril. So in the late 19th century, you had Vril being very much popularized in the mythos in today's society. Skip forward to this book called in 1896 by William Scott Elliott, called The Story of Atlantis, the Lost Letheria, or something like that. I probably said that wrong. Yeah, definitely said that wrong.
Is it Lemuria?
Lemuria, that's it. That's it. Yeah. So this mentions about Vril, Atlantis using Vril to power flying machines. Now, this is very, very important to the German flying saucer anti-gravity side that we're going to be talking about. So Vril being used to power flying machines. Okay, and this is in 1896. Skip forward to 1910. This novel by Julius Maria, called Panic in Paris, which again talks about Vril being used for flying machines and mystical forces of healing properties as well. This book, The Morning of the Magicians, which I have it here. I have the original copy. Now, this is the first ever mention of the Vril Society, otherwise known as the Vril Gesellschaft. Now, Gesellschaft means society or organization in German, because I read a lot of German books that would use the words Gesellschaft. So when I say Gesellschaft, it means society. Okay. So Morning of the Magicians, that came out in 1960, talked about the first ever mention of the Vril Society, not Maria Orsic, but just the Vril Society that would use occult practices, occult mythology that really bring it into the Third Reich, which is true. They did. This is one thing that people don't realize, that the Germans in the 1930s, especially with Himmler and Anno Neb and stuff like that, traveling to Tibet and trying to find the original origins of the Aryan race. And a lot of occult mythology was really, especially the Hindu religion, was brought into German philosophy and really sort of expanded it into the Third Reich. It's immensely fascinating. You know, it's quite terrifying, really, what the Germans managed to do. But yeah, you could check out this book called The Morning of the Magicians, which talks about the Vril Society. So as from 1960 to present day. Hold on a minute. I just need to find out something. Have I got a picture here of it? 2 seconds, guys, because I don't want to miss over anything. Okay. Right, this book here. this is where the Maria Orsic, the Real Society, really is popularized in today's mythos of German flying saucer conspiracy, as one would say. I tell you what, 2 seconds. I really need to bring up a photograph because in the late 80s, early 90s, there is a underground civilization. No, not underground civilization. A secret society based upon the Thaler Gesellschaft. And this society that was based in Vienna, which was more or less like a right-wing, what can you call it? They really wanted to popularize the German philosophy. And sorry guys, I'm just trying to bring this up here because this
Right, Nick.
is quite important. Just going to find a photograph here. Yeah, so you know the photographs of the German flying saucers, the ones with the gun turrets underneath it and everything like that?
Yeah.
2 seconds.
It's okay.
Because I can show you where the original photographs came from. Should be here. No, it's not. Okay, right. Skip that. Okay. So in the late 80s, early 90s, this secret society based in Vienna released all these documents, blueprints and photographs of German anti-gravity flying saucers. Okay. I really want to get these photographs. I really want to show you. But basically that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. There were 2 Austrians. Now, these are so important that people gloss over. They have no idea about these 2 Austrians that were part of this secret society called the Tempelgesellschaft. The Tempelhof Gesellschaft. That is the name of this organization society. So 2 Austrians were called Norbert Jürgen Rathofer and Ralph Ettel, co-written this book here called The Vril Project that came out in 1992. But these 2 Austrians also co-produced 2 documentaries that are on my YouTube channel called UFOs Secrets of the Third Reich, came out in 1994, and UFOs German Flying Saucers of World War II that came out in 1992. But they also co-written this. Now, this goes into the Real Society and the anti-gravity flying saucers and everything like that. This is like because when you talk about German flying saucers, you got to talk about Maria Orsic. You know, this is it. Here it is. If you go on to the internet and type in the Vril Project PDF, you can actually find the original document online. I think it's called Internet Archive, I believe. You can actually find the actual original document in here. It's good stuff on there. It basically shows you where the story of Maria Orsic came from, the Vril Society, the Hannibal Flying Saucers, and it all sounds like a bit like a comic book. I'm going to be honest with you. It doesn't make a lot of sense because you get bloody time machines, being built in the 1920s. Now, this symbol is the Vril Society symbol. I cannot find this anywhere throughout my books. All the way back to the 50s, I got books here on German flying saucers. I cannot find this anywhere. I think this was just created just to sort of sell books from the Vril Project. So the Vril Society, God, this is where it gets complicated. I really struggle with this. So the Vril Society was set up in 1919 to the end of the war. You had people like Maria Orsic, Rudolf von Bodendorf, Karl Haushofer, Dietrich Eckart. These were people that dealt with occult practices and really brought the philosophy the occult philosophy into the Third Reich, basically. Now, Maria Orsic, this is a gorgeous, long, blonde-haired woman who was part of the Vril Society. She was a powerful psychic medium. She had telepathic communications from an advanced civilization 28 million light years away in a planet called Aldebaran. Now, what does Aldebaran sounds like? It sounds like Alderaan from Star Wars, doesn't it? Aldebaran, sounds the same, really. So apparently Maria Orsic went in a trance, and she would write down descriptions or transcripts that were in Sumerian and Babylonian writing. And when this was actually translated, it was actually construction plans for German flying saucers. I'm not joking. This is actually this is apparently the story of Maria Orsic actually had communication powers from an advanced civilization of Aryans. I should have said that, first of all, of Aldebaran. The Aryan race was living there, and they gave her communication powers and information in regards of German flying saucers. This is the story of Maria Orsic. It sounds a bit far-fetched, doesn't it? I know it sounds a bit ooky spooky and that sort of stuff. And I hope I'm making sense at the moment.
You totally are, Nick.
Yeah,
and, you know,
that's right.
It does sound mental, but it's the truth, and it's what a lot of people don't realize was going on.
Yeah, it's true, because they were doing psychic research, what you would call remote viewing, like the early stages of remote viewing. But this is the thing with Maria Orsic, Liz, is that you would see this picture here, and people says, "Oh yeah, does that look like a photograph from the 1920s?"
No.
But the thing is, as you go along on the internet, you will find many impressions of Maria Orsic, many impressions, and this. I'm going to be honest with you. There is no. I've spoken to Tino Struckman. He's got a YouTube channel called Tino Struckman's Battlefields, and he is a German researcher that deals with German technology, German thoughts, and he looked into Maria Orsic and the Vril Society. And he says there is absolutely no evidence of Maria Orsic or the Vril Society. And he went into the German documentations. Yeah, he says there's absolutely no mentions of it. Because the thing is, Maria Orsic wasn't even mentioned until 1992 when that book came out, the Vril Project.
No way.
There's no mention of Maria Orsic anywhere. So from 1919 to 1991, there is no mention of Maria Orsic. Absolutely, no mention at all. Not even the Vril Society. That wasn't until the 60s. And I've been looking, and I can't find no pictures, no sketches of handwriting, whether or not she actually changed her name. But you can still have some sort of backtrack record of her existence. And unfortunately,
is all those four pictures supposed to be her?
Exactly. This is
four completely different women.
Exactly, 4 completely different women. Now these two here.
I mean, completely
the
different.
Are completely different, but it's almost like the same, but a bit different. Now, this is hilarious because someone sent this to me. It was like, "Oh no, this is a real picture of Maria Orsic." I was like, "Dude, that's guess who that?
That's
Kate Moss.
Kate Moss.
Yeah.
Oh well, there you go then. That's who Kate Moss really is. Then there you go. She's a clone.
So it is.
Yeah. I know. So this photograph is going around the internet saying, "Oh, this is the real proof of Maria Orsic." I'm going, dude, come on. Look, if you look at that photo of Hitler, it's exactly the same photograph, just Kate Moss's face. I have to admit, she kind of looks but quite the uniform. But...
there's uniforms and there's uniforms. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. So Maria Orsic is a tricky one. I'm not saying that she don't exist, but it's a possibility.
That is really interesting.
Yeah,
because I bought into that. I totally thought that was.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. It was just Mari in the chat. So Aldebaran is a fixed star in the constellation of Taurus.
That's it. That's it. In Taurus, the constellation of Taurus. Nice one, Mari. Nice one. So this is Maria Orsic. Absolutely no evidence of her existence. Unfortunately, people has expanded Maria Orsic's story. For instance, I got a book here that was written by some sort of person. I'm not going to read his name out because it doesn't really make any sense in my opinion. But he's saying that Maria Orsic had communications with Nikola Tesla. Absolutely, just total garbage in my opinion. You know, unfortunately.
People are jumping on the bandwagon, aren't they? By the sounds of it.
Exactly. They pick the story and they expand onto it. Basically, this is what they're doing. So that's Maria Orsic.
Figuring it out, though, Nick.
No, it's all right. It's part of the research, isn't it?
It's like looking behind the curtain, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Just not getting stuck.
I'm not saying she doesn't exist, but I'm not being honest, guys. I spent so many years. I got all these books here on German flying saucers, I cannot find anything
Wow,
about Maria Orsic.
that is really interesting.
Yeah.
But there'll be tons of information on her, books written by her. I'm like, I just, that's just, But I take my research seriously. I try to have like a good foundation of this this conspiracy, basically. So let's move away from Maria Orsic. And in the late 80s, early 90s, I was talking about documents and blueprints in regards of German flying saucers. Now, these flying saucers was called the Haunebu and the Vril. Okay, so this is a document allegedly showing the Vril 9. And you can see a little person in the cockpit here. Don't worry, get to the photographs in a minute. And apparently these were built. Now, the Vril flying saucers here, these were anti-gravity flying saucers that were tachyon drive flying saucers. These were a fighter intercept craft. These were designed to actually intercept fighters. And the Haunebu, which is the big carrier craft, which I'll show you in a minute. Here is the Haunebu. So this was released in the late 80s, early 90s. Okay. Take this with a very pinch of salt because I can't find the original documentations of this. Okay. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's just say this is true for the time being. So this is called the Haunebu 1 that was created in 1939. 1939. Okay. Let's move along down here. And this is the Haunebu 2. It looks very much like the George Zamsky flying saucer.
It really does. Those things underneath, those balls underneath, 100%.
Exactly, Liz. But they've also got gun turrets underneath it. Now, these didn't come out until the late 80s, early 90s, but the George Zamsky flying saucer didn't come out until the 50s. So it's a possibility they've taken that concept and put it into this. They've taken the concept of George Zamsky's flying saucer and applied it to here, and they've just said, "Oh yeah, this is what the Germans developed." Now, I got to mention this. Why was the Germans developing disc-shaped aircraft, fan-propelled, turbine-driven aircraft in 1941 to 1945 when they had anti-gravity flying saucers already developed in this one here, Haunebu 2, 1943, and the first Haunebu 1 was created in 1939. And you're thinking, why didn't they use it during the war? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That doesn't make sense, really.
It didn't really make sense, The thing is with these Haunebu flying saucers, this was from SSE4. This was a technical division of the Third Reich that was developing anti-gravity stuff. This was part of the Foo Fighters as well. That sort of technical side of the German technology, I should say. So, again, the Haunebu 2, apparently these were taken from A3 sheets of paper. I can't confirm that at all. I did speak to a German researcher last month in regards of this, and he says that these are real. These are actual real blueprints, but I'm a bit, I'm not too sure about it. Here's a real one. So these were apparently leaked out in late 80s, early 90s. Here is the Andromeda machine. This was a massive cigar-shaped aircraft that was held in the Zeppelin hangar, because this is like the mothership. Now, in here you can see the Haunebu flying saucer in the middle, and to the right here you have the small Vril flying saucers. You have some beds and compartments, and you have the 4 power drives. Now, according to what people are saying, what my books are saying, these anti-gravity flying saucers was basically having 2 discs that will counter-rotate against each other. And that was apparently the method of propulsion. It will actually distort the gravity. Basically, the idea is making gravity a bit more stronger in that immediate area, and eventually it will just like lift up, basically. There's absolutely no photographs or evidence to back this up, but let's just say it's real for the time being, just for the sake of arguments. So this is apparently what was designed. Whether or not they actually developed it, because that would be a bloody big carrier. I mean, people would have seen this thing, what I mean? Is the Haunebu 3 from 1945. So they've got 3 models of these massive, gigantic flying saucers. I mean, this was like 250 feet long. This is how big these craft were, according to these documentations here. So let's get back to the fun bit.
Mm.
I'm going to show you the photographs now of German flying saucers. Okay, take this with a very pinch of salt. These were taken from documentaries, books, a whole walks of life, basically. I've tried to really nail down where these photographs come from, and it's really difficult. And trying to get actual decent footage as well and photographs is difficult as well. So let's just skip through. Yeah, some of these are laughable, I have to admit.
What is that?
So here we have from the documentary UFO Secrets of the Third Reich an anti-gravity flying saucer, and you can see some sort of landscape in the background. Is difficult to see. They're very, very blurry images. Again, if you want to see these photographs, go onto my YouTube channel, The Cosmic Twilight. You got all the German flying saucer documentaries on there. In fact, I've got one that's actually banned. It's actually forbidden in Germany, which is extremely rare to find.
Really?
Find on channel. Yeah. It's very, very difficult. Actually, find it on Internet Archive. So yeah, thank you, Internet Archive.
No, it's good.
It's good. Here's another photograph as well. Bear in mind, if you look at Billy Meyer, you ever heard of Billy Meyer before?
Yeah.
What he used to do, now Billy Meyer's fake, 100%. I have to say, to stress this out now. But what he used to do was take models and he would apply it into actual realistic landscape background.
Yeah.
And this is how he would sort of blend the two together. Bear in mind, he had one arm, but he could have friends helped. So yeah, it's a possibility.
He was supposed to have met the Nordics, wouldn't he? He thought he met the Nordic, beautiful blonde people.
Yeah, that's it, Liz. Yeah. Here's another impression. Not impression. This is another photograph. It's very grainy. These are very grainy photographs. I do apologize, but let's just skip forward. That's not a very good photograph either. Here's the actual real one in test flights in 1943. This is from a book called Secret Societies and Their Occult Powers in the 20th Century. This is apparently what looks like inside one of these flying saucers. I think that's most likely a power plant, possibly. I don't know. But you can see the windows and everything. It's hard to say, really, to be honest with you. It's really, really difficult.
There's so much disinformation, Nick, in there. We think we've got disinformation now. Bloody hell!
This is the thing, Liz. When I've been researching through this through a fine tooth comb, I go, this doesn't really make sense. Like, this information doesn't really work with this information. It seems like a lot of disinformation and possibly a lot of faking going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a flying saucer in flight. You have the German Knight's Cross, and here we have 3 landing legs at the bottom. Unfortunately, I don't have any clearer photographs of these. Here is the Haunebu. This is the brim of the hat, the George Adamski photograph. Underneath, you kind of see like a gun turret underneath, because these were primarily had gun turrets underneath it. Again, I don't know where this photograph came from. It just came from the Secret Society. Here is the Haunebu again. Don't know where the photograph came from, but you can kind of see the gun turret underneath. Possibly could be faked. Here is another one as well. So these are all in flight, but you can tell
looks like George Adamski picture, 100%.
It does. It does, isn't it? This was taken from a documentary called UFO Secrets of the Third Reich, which is on my channel again. And you can see the person here actually holding the tip of a flying saucer on top of the tripod. I don't think I've actually got an actual proper realistic background shot of it. I'll see in a minute. Again, here's some other flying saucers, another grainy flying saucer. I've actually got the wrong photographs to show you because they're too grainy. But anyway, we go through it for the time being.
That's right, they're brilliant, Nick. It's really good. It's great.
Yeah.
And on top of here, we have a person standing on top of these anti-gravity flying saucers. They had 3 landing legs at the bottom of the craft. You see this a lot on the internet. This is a Panther gun turret. These were tank turrets that were mounted underneath a flying saucer. How they would reload these things, I don't know. Some say that these were actually laser weapon systems. I can't clarify that. I really don't know. But again, this is a very typical photograph you'll see online of the Haunebu. This is the George Adamski style flying saucer. And here's another one. And here's another one, probably most likely fake, fortunately. And again, there's another one here. This was taken by Billy Meyer, presentation in the mid-90s, who Billy Meyer claims to have been taken in these Haunebu flying saucers and zips around Mars and all that. And the photographs of the fake dinosaurs and the fake Palladium woman, that were basically singers, and you got these photographs that come with it.
Unbelievable.
Fascinating nevertheless, but again, it could be faked. Okay, so this is not George Adamski, Billy Meyer. So if we skip forward, take that concept of the Haunebu flying saucers with the brim of the hat with the gun turret underneath it. This photograph was taken in the 50s in America. Now, bear in mind, in the 1950s, there were a bunch of UFO reports in America, especially in Texas, because a lot of the German flying saucer people that were designing the flying saucers actually immigrated into Texas, believe it or not, where they were working in, I can't remember what the factory they were working in, some part of the army. But this looks like, if I zoom in, can you see a gun turret underneath this? It's really difficult.
Well, you can. You can.
There's definitely something at the bottom, yeah.
It's definitely something at the bottom, but it's the very traditional style of the brim of the hat. You know what I mean? Like the 1950s style UFOs. So, nevertheless, this could be Germans flying around in 1950s after the war. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, I was going to say, do you think obviously as the UFO phenomena sightings started, in the 50s and Roswell, do you think it was connected with these guys that had come over from Germany and maybe projects they were starting with the Americans? And
is a possibility. Is a possibility, Mark. I mean, if you believe in that the Germans had developed anti-gravity flying saucers, which I'm not ruling out, it's just there's not a lot of publications or testimonies of these discs. Because if they built 3 of them and didn't use it during the war, I'm very surprised that the Germans used everything. I'm surprised no one saw these flying saucers. Okay, but I would not be surprised if they did develop some sort of anti-gravity craft as such. Whether or not that actually went into America, your guess is probably good as mine, Mark, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't be surprised though if they did. But it's very strange how all these UFO sightings started to appear in America at the same time they was happening in Germany as well. Disc-shaped aircraft, because when I mentioned about Foo Fighters, the pilots were also seeing disc-shaped aircraft as well. I should have mentioned that they were actually seeing these flying discs as well. This is the first photograph that the guy took, and this is the second photograph. So he saw this coming in and flying over, and this is the second photograph of it. Right.
I can see a little thing at the bottom of that one, Nick. Or am I just imagining things?
No. If you have a look here, this is aerospace expert Stuart Nixon. He was the exclusive director of National Investigation Committee of Aeronaut Phenomena, which is called NICAP. Ever heard of that? NICAP?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know what it stood for.
Yeah. I botched the word up there. But he's showing the photograph that was taken by Ralph in Ohio in America in November 13, 1966. So it wasn't the 50s, 1966. And here, note what appears to be a tank mounted underneath it. So you can see here, it's almost like
100%.
So again, could be the Haunebu. Who knows? So yeah, we move away from the Haunebu and real flying saucers into the Bell Project, which I haven't got. I haven't got the Bell Project stuff at the moment. So we'll skip over that. So what happened after the war, Mark and Liz, is you start to get America started developing these disc-shaped aircraft. And here's have you heard of the Avro car? The Avro car program. Which was like this. I think I've got a picture here. That's it. Yeah. This is the donut-shaped aircraft, which apparently Richard Methe, who was a part of the German flying saucer program in the 40s, immigrated to America to be part of this program. Now, this was designed not to fly. specifically not to fly. You had a turbine. Remember the turbine-driven aircraft I showed you earlier? You just had, instead of having it going around the aircraft, you actually have it in the middle here, and you have the cockpit here. Now, this just hovered. It literally bounced up and down, and I believe this was put out there on purpose because there were so many UFO reports in America at the time in the 50s and 60s. I think America wanted to develop an aircraft to say to the population, look, these flying saucers, they're not ours, it's just a bunch of nonsense. Here's a typical example. Look at our flying saucers that we built. It's just hovering. Just ignore it. So that's my opinion, personal opinion of the Avro car. But that's not the Avro car. That's the Avro car. This is the actual design of it. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Absolutely different. It's a whole different type of method of propulsion. So you look at that there.
Yeah.
Just a little fan turning around, hovering, bouncing up and down.
Looks like a Roomba. Looks like it wants to clean your living room.
Exactly. But this is the real Avro car. This is what the Americans were developing in the 50s. Not anti-gravity. This was like jet-propelled flying saucers. So they've most likely taken the German scientists that were based in Prague at the time and then bring them into America to develop this. But given the excuse of, oh, look at this flying saucer we built. It doesn't fly. Ignore it. Carry on with your life. That's my personal opinion of it. Okay. This is another impression of the Avro car. See, it's completely different design. Completely different. And this was designed to actually cut through aircraft, believe it or not.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, this is it. So, this is called the Silver Bug. That was allegedly developed. So, again, you had these flying discs that the Americans were developing straight after World War II. So is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I think they've really kept that under wraps. So that is the German flying saucers of World War II. So in conclusion, from 1941 to 1945, you had the turbine-driven aircraft, and then there was nothing, absolutely nothing, until the late 80s, early 90s. I'm going to try and grab up these photographs in a minute that show the anti-gravity side of the German flying saucers. So no anti-gravity was mentioned from the end of World War II until 1991. Well, the late 80s until 1991. So it's such a mixed bag, this conspiracy, because I thought it was straightforward, but it's not. I really had to sort of go back and put a timeline together to really understand the foundations of this conspiracy. And it's a bloody batshit crazy one.
There's so many layers and so many psyops that they're hiding something, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there has obviously been a lot of talk. I mean, as we know, like with a lot of these wars, there's the people at the top were financing in both sides, and so they play these games. So, like you're saying, if they had this technology, why wouldn't they use it? But maybe, if it was part of the plan all along that Germany weren't going to win that war, but in actual fact, it didn't really matter because the people up top just moved around a bit. They moved the pieces around, and then they just moved it maybe over to America or Antarctica or whatever, and it might be part of a bigger plan. So it's not just as simple as Germany versus Britain and America sort of thing. That's what it obviously is on the face of it, but there's deeper levels to it. Yeah, maybe.
So it's definitely a mixed bag. It really is.
That was amazing. That was fascinating.
It was.
I'm going to gloss over this. This is the Bell Project, which I believe they definitely
the N-word Bell.
The N-word Bell. Yeah. Just a very brief background on this. If you want any information on this device, which I believe they definitely did test this device, check out. Where's this book? Where's this? Buried there somewhere. It's called Igor Wachowski. He's the one that broke the story back in 1991. And in his book called, what is it called? The Secrets. I'll find it in a minute. I'll find it because it's quite really, really good book to get. But he broke the story back in 1991, which this device was. Got the book here actually. This is quite important. So look here. Okay, so yeah, the truth about the Wunderwaffe, which wonder weapon, and this is a fantastic book detailing everything about the Bell project, and amongst like aircraft and what Germany was developing in World War II. So the Bell project was a device that was 12 foot in width and 18 foot high. It was shaped as a bell, known as Die Glocke. That is the bell in German. Okay, Die Glocke. And inside this device, you had two barrels or cylinders. And inside these cylinders will have a red liquid mercury substance that was called, oh, bloody hell. I've got my notes here somewhere. I think I'm going to butcher this word now, is serum X25. I think it's believed. And this was a red mercury liquid. And what happened, and they put these in these cylinders and they would counter rotate against each other. So one would spin the other way and one would spin the other way. And what they were doing, this device was linked up to a power plant and they were pumping globs of electricity. I mean, enough electricity to actually power Berlin. I'm not joking, into this device. And what will happen, the device will give... it will activate and it will give off a huge amount of radiation. But the History Channel, amongst other people, says, oh, it zip-zopped and flied around the air. It didn't do that at all. It literally lifted up and lifted back down. That's all it did. It went up and went down. This was tested underground first. According to Igor Rakowski's documentations in his book, it stated that plants were tested, materials were tested in the device area, and they found out that plants would degrade. It would go black and literally turn into powder.
Directed energy weapon, anybody?
Yeah, sounds like it is, doesn't it? Scientists ended up dying because of the background radiation of it. Metals will actually distort and bend. Now that sounds like something that happened, 23 years ago. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Dr. Judy Wood. So yeah, you had all these things happening underground, and then they tested this outside, which is, hold on 2 seconds. Hold on, have I got it here? The henge. We've all seen this picture, the henge.
Yeah.
This is apparently where it was actually tested. Now, there are prisoners of war saw a big glowing light emitting from this area. Okay. The Germans were developing very small nukes at the time of the war, late stages of the war. But they believe that this device was tested in this device here. Now, in this place in Poland called the Henge, photograph here, this goes right underneath the ground, and you've got these massive thick cables, like they're gigantic, huge cables, and you've got 10 of them that goes all in a circle around the Henge here. And the power actually will go up in these pillars. So what was
the hell?
tested? Yeah, literally. So something was tested here.
It's like a mini CERN.
Exactly.
Well, interesting. It's in between that. Also the fact that it's a henge, as they call it. It's using ancient technology as well. The energy of
the
stones. It's like the ancient.
Using
stone circles. To channel
Oh
energy.
my God! What the hell are they doing now if they're doing that?
Exactly. Yeah. And where did that technology go? This is the thing.
Exactly.
So the Bell project is a whole new. I'm just going to gloss over a lot of things at the moment, but because it requires a whole new show on.
Well, we're going to have you back then, aren't we?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, that is the Bell project. Igor Rakowski. This is his impression of the Bell project. Now, people will say, "Oh, it was flying around doing these fantastic maneuvers and people were using it to fly around everywhere." But this thing was linked up to a power plant. It needed electricity to fly, you see. So you can rule out the idea it was flying around all over the place like Foo Fighters. It didn't at all. That's just a History Channel, all right?
Just to cover up what it was really doing.
Exactly. Just to backtrack a little bit, remember I showed you the photograph of the man holding the flying saucer. This is actually the background shot of it. This is the actual full photograph. So of the flying saucer is on top of a tripod. You've got the car in the background. It could be faked. There's not a lot of detail into it. It's very grainy, but it's fascinating nevertheless. So that is my presentation on German flying saucers.
Absolutely amazing, Nick.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
I hope
you've
it
got
all
such
makes
a
sense.
wealth of of course it did. It was absolutely brilliant. What a wealth of knowledge you've got on that subject. You should be up there doing the conferences, etc., Nick.
Do you know what? You going to Glastonbury Symposium this year,
yeah. You're coming, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm coming. I can't make it on Saturday. Unfortunately, me and the missus got a convention to go to, but I'll be there on a Friday. I'm going to miss Andy Thomas because he's on a Saturday.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, no, he's fantastic.
But I'm going to try.
You've seen him loads, though, haven't you?
Yeah, I'll see him on YouTube when he's uploaded his stuff. But
so you're coming on the Friday?
I might be on the Friday or Sunday. I'm going to try and get there for a Friday. But I want to speak to Andy Thomas because I really would like to go and do like a proper presentation. I've got so much material here to work with.
I know. Nick, you'd be amazing. I'll tell you, you and Mark need to be up there, not sitting in the bloody audience. You need to be up there doing the bloody presentations. Both of you do, I tell you. I'll be in the audience. You'll be fine. You just need to keep practicing. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a brilliant presentation.
That's absolutely stunning, Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So I came back from the party a little bit, quite tipsy, I have to admit. So I was a bit like,
well, maybe that's the secret.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy. I'll do a conference, but you supply the beer.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know. Exactly what you mean.
So yeah, that is just a very basic background of what the German flying saucer is. I go into a lot more detail in my on my channel as well. I'm looking to do more sort of research into it and more conclusions, I should say. But that's just a very basic background of where German flying saucers has been.
So what got you into it then, Nick? Why are you into this subject? And what do you think about the idea of real UFOs and aliens and all that?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, for instance, I got to thank my parents for molding me as the conspiracy theorist that I am today, because my dad, mum and dad always would watch aliens, UFOs, ghosts, paranormals, or anything unusual. Especially my mum. Me and mum are like that. We are like proper. We message each other every day about conspiracy stuff, like literally every day. And she's the one that really got me into like conspiracies. But I've always been interested in ghosts and UFOs and aliens and stuff like that ever since I was a kid. Could you remember Strange But True? That program back in the 90s? That I love that, absolutely love that sort of stuff. And that really sort of kickstarted my sort of interest. But back in music college, back in 2005-06, I was really into like UFOs, like real hardcore. I was researching everything into it. And there was a friend of mine saying, have you heard about the Germans developing flying saucers? I was like, nah, that's rubbish. And I did a bit of research into it, and I found it fascinating. All these photographs and documentations of Maria Orsic and the Vril Society. I thought, well, this is interesting, but it didn't kind of make sense. I didn't really have like the full picture. And it was about 10 years ago. I thought, right, sod it. I'm going to do some real research into it. I'm going to go back, buy all these books. I mean, these books here cost me a couple £100, some of them. Or they're all out of print. They're years old. They're all from Germany, or actually, in fact, all around the world, because I wanted to understand the basic framework of where these stories came from. And I think I've done a decent job. I think I've managed to nail the foundation of the whole, the aspect of the mythos of German flying saucers. But what I love to do is to go into Germany and trying to track the two Austrians that set up the Maria Orsic, the Vril Society and stuff like that, the Haunebu flying saucers. I'm going to try and track them down and try and track where the original blueprints, the original photographs, I want to see it, in front of me. I don't want to see it on the internet. I want to see it in person, because if it's on a A4 piece of paper that's just been printed, that's not good enough for me. I need to see the original blueprint, the original photographs. Until then, I'm 50,
you don't want the world pulled over your eyes again. That's all we've had, isn't it? Bloody how many years? So what do you think about the truth behind this? And why the heck, where did they get the idea to, for these UFO. Where did they get the idea from? If not Vril, then where?
Yeah. In terms of the turbine-driven aircraft I showed you earlier, with the fan propel going around, Rudolf Schriever, one of the German engineers, stated that in the 1936 German Olympics that held in Berlin, he saw the discus, the discus throw, and he said he got that concept of the disc going in the air, spinning in the air, basically from that, and he applied that motion into a flying saucer. But he also based his propulsion system on the Coanda effect. Okay, so the Henry Coanda basically in the 30s got a disc-shaped aircraft, and he would draw air down on the craft. And what will happen as you got the disc-shaped aircraft? The air will actually go underneath the craft. It won't go straight down. It will actually go underneath it, actually propelling. And that was called the Coanda effect. And Rudolf Schriever had taken that concept, as well as the discus concept as well, of the propulsion system of flight, into an actual craft itself. And that's where he got the idea from. Where they got the idea of anti-gravity flying saucers, I have no idea, Liz. They most likely, not saying this is true, but they most likely taken the concept of George Adamski, because it looks exactly the same.
It does.
And then applied it, faked it. Unfortunately, there is a lot of faking going on. You can't deny that. And then, and that's how the mythos of the German anti-gravity flying saucers really propelled itself. But if you go on the internet now, it's all over the place, literally all over the place. And I go, this isn't, why is Maria Orsic talking to like Nikola Tesla? Like this, why is
It's just
Victor
muddying the
Schauberger-
waters, isn't it?
It's like Victor Schauberger being part of the Vril Society. It's like he wasn't even part of the Vril Society. He wasn't really into anything occult, but you will see this time and time again. And it's misinformation. I hate using that word, misinformation, but
No, it's
it
true,
really
though.
is when you look at it. So,
Well, it makes it sexy, doesn't it? It makes it, oh, it's got this kind of esoteric. I mean, until you mentioned it then, I thought it was completely 100%. Oh, Hitler was into this and Hitler, but he was though, wasn't he? Was he or wasn't he? I don't know now.
Well, I mean, I definitely think those people with the N word, there certainly were high up people. I mean, I think the man with the H,
Man.
H moustache man.
I think I've just said.
Oh, anyway, but he was maybe a bit of a puppet anyway. I mean, there was link obviously with him, Rothschilds and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I think there must have been people high up. It does fascinate me, all that. Watched Raiders of the Lost Ark again the other day, but
nice.
I think there definitely is a basis in that there were the Germans in the World War, like you said about. Obviously, it's been proven that the guy went to Tibet. You mentioned his name, I think. I can't remember it, but they were certainly searching out all these ancient artifacts and technology. Interesting, I was talking weeks ago about alchemy and Falconelli. He wrote about this mystery of the cathedrals, and apparently when he was in Paris, or the book came out in Paris, and when the Germans took over France during the Second World War, apparently they were trying to find Falconelli. There was documentation, and then after the Second World War, I think the CIA, or the forerunners of the CIA, I forget what they called it now, but they were looking for him as well. So that idea maybe alchemy something. When you talk about things like the bell and all these sort of technologies, again, I think they were trying to reach back definitely to ancient technologies and ancient knowledge.
So in a nutshell, what do you think about Roswell, Nick?
I don't know. I go back and forth on that. I don't know, because if I asked Ben, Ben the jail porter, where does the alien aspect come from? And again, these are just stories. There's nothing really solid to real back up that it was an extraterrestrial craft. Now, there's a author called Joseph P. Farrell. Ever heard of him? Very fantastic researcher who's written many books in regards of the N people and all that. But he written a book called oh god, I got it here. What's it called? Trying to find it here. It's called Roswell and the Reich, and he believes that what crashed at Roswell was actually German, because he produced this document from the FBI stating whatever crashed at Roswell, we need to get these German scientists to actually look at it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an actual real document. Now, there are the MJ12 documents that are still a bit sketchy for me as well, whether or not they're actually true. But I believe there is a fake document stating that whatever crashed at Roswell was extraterrestrial. These aliens were walking around, they retrieved the craft and all that. But that document is a very, very sketchy. It's not really right, in my opinion. I can do a deep. I'm going to come on next and talk about the Bell Project. I'll talk about what Joseph P. Farrell's talking about. Whatever crashed at Roswell possibly could have been German.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
Listen, Neil is in the house. Neil Peel from the Paranormal Peep Show. Neil, it's got nothing to do with me, what you do with your life, but I think you need Nick on your show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a little listen back to it. Yeah, seriously, Neil, he did a better bloody job than me and our Mark.
Oh,
that's nice.
Equally,
poor Mark.
Brilliant.
Equally brilliant.
Seriously,
brilliant. Neil, have a little listen back to our Nick. I think he'd make a fantastic guest. There's not a lot he don't know about the N-word people. That sounds absolutely outrageous. But
wasn't that a 70s children's TV program?
The people in Germany with the nice suits.
Yeah.
They were good dressers.
Yeah, but specifically, Neil, in terms of the UFO element. Yeah.
I think he'd make a great guest, Neil.
He would indeed. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of was it Jacobson, Annie Jacobson?
Yeah.
She was talking about Roswell being something from the Russians, but again, obviously Russians had German scientists as well as the Americans, didn't they?
Which was the one that said it was just a load of children.
Yeah, I think that was what I'm thinking of. But
deformed children.
But I think from Russia, and they didn't want to. They what she was saying, something like they wanted to create this fake story of UFOs because they wanted to hide the fact that they were doing a similar thing with children and experiments, and they didn't want it to get out that it was that. So that But anyway, another interesting theory. There's so many, but
yeah, exactly, Mark. That's like the fifth thing I've heard about Roswell. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many books written about Roswell, so many different theories. Well, we will never know the truth about Roswell. I'd love to know the truth, but it's been 80 years. We would have had the truth by now. But apparently this year there's supposed to be some documents released in regards of Roswell. I
think we had that last time, and it was all like redacted. Didn't we have that
exactly,
not very long ago?
Yeah, it was.
So, what about real phenomena? I know, Nick, you do a lot of you go and do. Oh, Neil, you'll be interested in this as well. Nick goes out and takes photos of orbs and ghosties and that sort of thing and paranormal phenomena. He'd be a great guest, Neil. He really would.
Yeah.
I personally come to the conclusion now. I've been on Alien Addicts. I don't know if there's quite popular YouTube channel called Alien Addicts talk about UFOs.
Yeah, we've heard you on there. Yeah.
I've come to the realization now that I reckon aliens, extraterrestrials, I should say, are most likely third dimensional, fifth dimensional beings. Because there's one of our residents who lives here. He told me a story that he saw this ball of light for a while in his place up in Norfolk. And the way he would describe it to me, like this ball of light would have intelligence. Now, whether or not that's actually extraterrestrial, I don't know. But I personally think there's a link between, just my opinion, a link between orbs as being a spiritual entity, and that's linked to possibly aliens. Like it's all connected together as one cosmic. That's the word coming on top of my head, as one as one entity, I should say. I think it's more or less all linked together because
I tend to agree.
I never even thought of that like last month, but when I really thought about it, I thought, hold on a minute, there are balls of light. I'm not saying that Foo Fighters weren't, extraterrestrials, but there's some sort of evidence to back up that it must be technology. But there are balls of light in the sky that has intelligence control. Whether or not that's aliens inside these things, that might be the extraterrestrials itself. The ball of light, it can actually manifest and change. So I've come to that realization now. I'm not ruling out aliens. I've always been into aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. But my whole concept has changed. The idea of aliens being in a spacecraft flying around to actually no, these balls of light are the aliens. These are the extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's linked, whether or not that's actually linked up to orbs and everything, who knows? I'm really, really looking into it recently. I was really playing with the idea. It's like this is just a really crazy concept, but there's some sort of link.
I tend to agree, and it's what we did a really rubbish. Well, thank God Mari was there at the first half an hour to make it a little bit more intelligent. But before you came on to fill in a bit of time, we were talking about the Green Man and what the bloody hell's all that, and it all goes back to. Neil does amazing work on the fairies. There's these oddities called the Green Man. There's aliens. There's it all goes back to me. I use the umbrella term the jinn because the jinn can take any form, and for me that's what I call them. I think it's all the same phenomena. I think depending on where you are culturally, it's called a different thing. Depending on where you are in the time, the so-called linear timeline of what we think time is, it's called a different thing. I think it's the same thing, but it can take many forms, and it can take many forms for you personally, not just culturally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I think you're spot on there, Liz.
I agree with you, Nick. It's the same thing. Whatever you want to call that, a leprechaun, an alien, the jinn, a ghosty, whatever you want to call that, it's kind of the same thing.
It is. It's there's definitely a link to it. And it's only recently I've come to that conclusion. I mean, I was like, wow, actually, no, hold on a minute. I need to rethink this. This is like absolutely incredible stuff.
That's amazing, Nick.
Yeah. If anyone else has got any information about that, any books linked to what we're talking about,
Mari said this is linked to Numena, Numena.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah. But
you've heard of Nick Hayes, though, haven't you, Nick? Yeah. You've heard of Nick Hayes.
Quest for the Invisibles.
He's one of our mates. We met him through Ben. Quest for the Invisibles. He takes photographs and in the ultraviolet and the infrared, and he'll use orgone. What is it?
Orgone energy, is that it?
Yeah, but he uses one of those. He puts the poles in Cloudbuster, and then he'll take thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, just sort of like his shutters going off, and then he looks through these images so long, like months and months and months, that he's actually made his eyes bad, and then he'll find one frame, and there's like this weird. He calls them skyfish, but it's like you were saying, it's not a nuts and bolts alien spaceship. It's kind of something that's biological, that has sentience, that's literally what you were saying. And he's got loads of pictures of that, but he's also got pictures of weird ghosties and ghoulies and things like that he takes, because he takes pictures in the ultraviolet and the infrared. Quest for the Invisibles, look him up.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He's our friend on Facebook, Nick Hayes. He spells his name like you, Nik. Get in with him, love, because you two will have an awful lot to chat about. I'll link you up.
Yeah, please link me up.
I'll link you up.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
He's done incredible research. He's another good guest, Neil.
Yeah,
he's been on a few. He's been on Jay Widener and a few other.
He's really getting himself out there. So Trevor Constable, was it?
Trevor James Constable.
Trevor James Constable was a guy that used to do this, like a star exercise. So he used to do a star exercise where he put his hands out, then turn right, put his arms out, and he'd do this for hours on end apparently, and then that would kind of get the orgone energy, and then he was able to take pictures of these skyfish. And so Nick's sort of taken on the mantle from this Trevor James Constable researcher, and has got some amazing results. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, Quest for the Invisibles.
Check it out.
Yeah,
Definitely check it out. Yeah.
I'll link you up. I'll
Sweet.
send him an email.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that stuff's like
Awesome.
really interesting, especially like taking ghost photos and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I'm starting to get back into it again, doing a bit of ghost hunt and stuff like that. I find it fascinating.
It's amazing. Just before you go, I'm just going to find some of his pictures and just show you. Talk amongst yourselves.
But yeah, I think this idea of I agree. All these things being on some sort of plasma level, or sort of a multi-dimensional type of thing, where they're sort of literally, I suppose, in terms of Nick's photography, between the frames, so they're always amongst us, if you like, but it's just you can't we can't see him because of different frequencies and that sort of thing.
I think it's the light spectrum as well. I mean, my cat. I mean, he's always looking over my shoulder. I'm like, what are you looking at?
100%.
So it's like we can only see what 0.01%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another researcher, and he doesn't actually put a lot on, but it's called Bent Light on YouTube, and he bends light with water in glass, and he gets weird demonic faces by bending light through water through glass. It's absolutely amazing. I'm just going to share this, Nick, just so that you can. It's not very good, but I just want you to just have a little look at our Nick. Bear with.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. It really is. This is all sort of new to me. It's just a whole new sort of concept I've really
different way of looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I wouldn't have had that opinion if it wasn't on Alien Addict, because they all more or less share the same ideas. It's fantastic.
Can you see that?
Wow.
So these are pictures that he's actually taken. This is the front cover of his book. We've got his book. Oh, Nick, I'll lend you his book when we meet you at the symposium. I'll bring it in and show you.
I'll probably buy it now, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'll buy it now.
I think he's only selling it for about 10 or something. It's,
okay, that's
Mark,
cool.
you're pulling this out of my ear.
All right, sorry.
You just pulled it out of my ear.
All right.
Could you remember rods? Does Nick talk about rods at all?
Yeah, he does talk about rods, and we've got it here. I don't know if they can see me or not.
I can see him.
Yeah, he does, and he also does. He on purpose photographs insects because people keep accusing him of having insects, which look like little rods. But he's on purpose photographs them to prove that what he's doing is nothing like that. Is that actually showing? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, he's very up on the technology, so he does. Yeah, he works very hard to rule things out. To confirm that it's not just an anomaly on the photograph, or like this says a bug on there or something. Yeah,
that looks like it's. And so what he does is he always has like a part of a roof. And so that the sunlight is kind of just shining through above the roof. And that's where he can catch his images. But like I say, he's out there all day, days and days and days on end. And then he'll look through it methodically, thousands and thousands and thousands of frames, just to get one of these pictures, to the point where he's damaged his eyesight. And he said he's got a little bit mad as well. But,
well, that's fascinating.
Now he's amazing.
I did that the other day. They were spraying very, very heavily about our heads once again. And I thought, put the camcorder like between like the wall and the light, and you can kind of see all the particles. Have you ever seen that? It's a bit what Nick's doing there. He's putting the camera between the sun and like a brick wall, and you can see all these bloody particles flying around everywhere. And then I did it on a day when it was clear, with no sprays at all, and there was nothing at all.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What he does say is, now we were talking earlier about all of these things being connected. Ever since he's been doing this work in the infrared and the ultraviolet, he says, you look at them, they start looking at you, and he's been getting some really quite scary phenomenon happening inside his house.
Yeah, he's had to take a back seat on things because it was getting a bit too much, really, getting a bit too intense. All these things that were happening,
scary being
to him
in
and
his actual room,
his family
and his
you know,
family.
in-
Yeah. So what you look at will look back. So make sure you look after yourself and protect yourself if you're going to start going down this route, Nick, because this is the real route. This is what it's all about, in my opinion. I think Nick Hayes is doing cutting edge work.
Oh, he absolutely is. Yeah.
He was actually conjuring entities.
Well, they were, I think it was because he was seeing them and realizing they were there. I don't think he was conjuring them on purpose, but like I say, you look at the darkness, it looks back, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And
Well,
he was starting to
remember
get some
we went to
weird stuff.
Remember we went to Glastonbury. I still wear my protected ruin.
Oh, do you? I've got mine up here. I can't wear anything at the moment because of me surgery. Have I told everybody I've had an operation? I don't know if I've mentioned it enough times or not. Need a bit more sympathy about me operation.
That's a description of Liz.
Oh my God, my son forced me to have this. I think it's a ground up cow. It's collagen. I'm on that.
But look at the design on it. It's amazing.
Yeah, but look at the design on the packaging. It's like some bloody Inca god. But anyway, moving on.
Well,
Nothing to do with it.
Ancient and brave.
Yeah.
Well, you're brave,
I am.
not ancient.
Brilliant. All right, Nick, we'll let you go. Thank you so much. You have made our channel more professional. The first half an hour we muddled through. Thank God Mari was there. But yeah.
Cheers, mate. Yeah,
we
really
were waiting
appreciate
for the
it.
professionals to come in. But yeah, hopefully Neil will get you on his show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate you actually contacting everyone and saying, look, we need a presentation. I actually saw the message this morning. Otherwise, I would have been hammered by now if I was still on. No, honestly, everyone, they're my boot camp people. They know me as a conspiracy theorist. In fact, actually, we were talking about conspiracy theories. We were all getting bloody drunk together, but they will get apps right now. They'll be paralytic.
So we've saved you from a hangover. Then,
you have saved me. Yeah,
unless you're going back to meet him now. He's going back now. He's going back to meet him now. That's what he's doing.
No, I'm home now. I'm home now. That's it.
That's it now. That's it.
Well, I appreciate you tearing yourself away, and I don't know how you did such an eloquent presentation. You didn't come across as a man that's just been to a party. If it had been me, I would have been a heap.
I wouldn't have had you on it.
Well, no, Liz would have.
I wouldn't have allowed it.
They'd kicked me in the nuts probably by then.
Yeah, I know this. I've been researching this for so long now. I just know at the back of my hand at this point. I could just put the photos there, and I can. As long as I've got some notes, I can just go for it. So,
but that's what makes a good presentation, when you know your stuff and you don't have to just read it like a robot. That's why it's so engaging and so professional. Absolutely stunning, Nick. Stunning.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Thank you so much. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go and have some more opiates in a minute.
Just to say, basically everyone in the chat, Nick's been saying what a great job. And what a brilliant presentation.
Been saying what a great job you've been doing. Nick.
And you've already got some more subs, so I think.
DJ sub to you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just going to mention about my channel. First of all, I deal with German flying saucers, but I started to add conspiracy theory videos, truth videos like Richard D. Hall, stuff on any sort of conspiracy theory sort of stuff, really. So that's going to be a lot on my channel coming up. So if you look into any documentaries, really good information that is worthy of more attention, I believe. I want to bring my channel. I'm already shadow banned anyway, so it's might as well just continue like uploading, some real top notch. Exactly, yeah. So yeah, if you want to see good truth documentaries, check out Cosmic Twilight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got one sub. I think DJ's already subbed to you. So awesome, Nick. Thank you so much for helping us out tonight.
Yeah, you're a superstar.
Because I went up to it tonight. Yeah.
I'll get you a beer at the symposium.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And, so you're going to be there on the Friday?
Yeah, be there on a Friday. I'm going to try and get there on a Saturday. I mean, Mrs. got a convention, like a gaming convention to go to. But I'll see. But Friday for sure, 100%.
Yeah,
but I want to see Andy Thomas live release. But I'll give you a shout out anyway.
We'll be in touch before then.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
No
Thanks
problem.
so much. And
Have a good
yeah,
night.
everybody go and see Nick's channel. He
Yeah.
does a great job. Amazing.
Cosmic Twilight, everyone, check him out.
Yeah. Cheers, our
Thank
Nick.
you. Thank you.
See you
Right,
soon.
I'll see you soon.
Bye,
Take care,
yeah.
See
everyone.
you, mate.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Well, that made our channel a bit more professional. And I need to apologise because this keeps falling off and it looks like I'm naked.
Oh, Christ.
And I'm not naked.
With some weird attached objects anyway. This sort of bloody.
Oh, yeah, I figured it out. The first half an hour why I couldn't hear Mari was because, being professional, I turned the sound off on the computer.
Poor Mari.
I'm going to cut you, Mari.
Oh,
What
Mari.
have you done?
Like, Mari, what you done?
What
What you
have you done?
doing? Press
So-
the button.
Now, what I've realised is if you're going to interview people, you got to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Do this. He's not ignoring you. He's actually typing in the
Yeah,
chat
I've got a
on his phone.
multitask and I can't do it very well.
Can't do it very well.
I'm just going to say cheers, Nick. But
Cheers, Nick.
I've said that in person anyway.
You
but
have.
anyway.
Right, I'm going to go and get some tablets because I'm in a lot of pain. Did I tell you I had an operation?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe the Green Man presentation will be a bit more professional. And Mari, we want you on here talking about astrology, so pull your finger at your ass. Thanks, everybody. Love you loads. And thanks for bearing with me. And Nick, thank you so much. You just upped our channel. You upped it.
Upped it.
Upped it.
Up, everybody.
Up your channel.
Up yours.